The Olympic Games are steeped in history. They began in 776 BCE as a tribute to Zeus, although some argue it was in honor of their deceased. The first modern-day Olympic Games took place in Athens in 1896. Here are 15 things you didn't know about the Olympic Games. Number 1. Tokyo doctors call for cancellation of the Olympic Games. Since the first modern-day Olympic Games, the Olympics have only been cancelled twice. The first time was during World War I, the second during World War II. Fast forward a few decades, and it seems like the cancelling of a third Olympic Games may be in the cards. The 2020 Olympic Games are due to start on the 23rd of July, 2021. But with a surge of coronavirus infections, doctors in Tokyo are calling for the event to be cancelled. According to Business Live, a top medical organization is saying that hospitals are already overwhelmed as the country battles a spike in coronavirus infections. Graphics Reuters states that only around 20% of the population is currently vaccinated. Number 2. What do Japanese citizens want? You've heard what the doctors have to say about canceling the event, and it seems that Japanese citizens want the same thing. A survey conducted by Asahi Shimbun confirmed that over 80% of Japanese are opposed to hosting the event and want it cancelled. A mere 14% felt that the Games should go ahead as planned. A separate Kyoto poll brought forward similar results, with almost 90% of respondents concerned that an influx of athletes and staff would spread the virus unnecessarily. And Aluxers, don't forget that while you're enjoying this video, you can simply click subscribe to stay up to date with our daily releases. Number 3. An Olympics without fans? What's the point? Being part of the Olympic Games is the ultimate goal for any athlete, racing your heart out and listening to the crowds cheering you on. Can you just imagine what a letdown it would be running around, jumping or paddling to the sounds of nothing? Already, international fans are not allowed to witness the spectacle, and the last update posted on the Guardian website was the opening ceremony would only be watched by those connected to sponsors and special guests. There's a 10,000 cap limit on local spectators, or 50% capacity, but the Guardian reports that the cap could be lowered if Tokyo is still covered by quasi-emergency virus measures by the time the Games open. Number 4. The IOC welcomed Pfizer and BioNTech's donated vaccines to Olympic teams. Pfizer and BioNTech have donated vaccines to all the athletes heading to the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Tokyo. IOC President Thomas Bach said, "This donation of the vaccine is another tool in our toolbox of measures to help make the Olympic and Paralympic Games Tokyo 2020 safe and secure for all participants, and to show solidarity with our gracious Japanese hosts." Number 5. A full-blown boycott is being pushed for the Beijing Olympics. The Winter Olympics are not far off, set to take place in Beijing in February 2022. It's possible that COVID may be under control by then, but the challenges facing the Winter Olympics are the boycotts happening right now. Several groups are accusing China of human rights abuses against minorities. The Uyghurs, Tibetans, and residents of Hong Kong have come together to ensure that the Games do not go ahead in China. A key figure leading these demonstrations is Zumrate Arkin of the World Uyghur Congress, who said, "If the Games go ahead, then Beijing gets the international seal of approval for what they're doing." According to Reuters, U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi also called for the U.S. to boycott the Winter Olympics, accusing the country of human rights abuses, and stating that any global leader who attends would lose their moral authority. And what do the sponsors have to say about this? Well, let's find out. Number 6. Olympics sponsors duck questions over Beijing 2022. Aluxers, it seems like for most of the sponsors, it's a case of no comment. California News Times confirms that a letter was sent to 13 companies who are major sponsors, asking about their agreements and plans with the 2022 Olympics. Of the 13 letters that were sent, 11 were unanswered. The following companies declined to comment: Coca-Cola in the US, Airbnb, Visa, Toyota, and Panasonic in Japan, Samsung in South Korea, and Alibaba. The only two that did respond were Alliance, who said they were defending their position in countries with different views on human rights, saying it was contributed to prosperity and security, and Omega, who said their focus was purely on the athletes and they were maintaining their role as the official timekeepers of the Games. Number 7. How sustainable are the Olympic Games? The Olympic Games should be at the forefront of sustainability, but they come in last in the race. Researchers have been gathering data on both the Winter and Summer Olympics since 1992 to see how sustainable the events were. They used 3 indicators for the assessment: ecological dimension, social dimension, and economic dimension. For the first, they took into account how many new venues were built. For the second, how many people were displaced for the event or building. And third, how much did the country go over their budget? Each category received a score out of 100, 100 being the most sustainable. Researchers confirmed that there are no Olympics that score highly in all or even the majority of the indicators of our model. And if you're keen to know who scored the highest and the lowest on the sustainability front, best you stick with us until the end. Number 8. The first recorded case of doping. Like any major sporting event, there are always scandals, and the Olympics is no different. The first ever recorded case of doping was in 1904. Doping was a little bit different in 1904, though. Marathon winner Thomas Hicks won the race using a crazy mixture of rat poison and brandy. Since that incident, there have been hundreds of athletes disqualified for consuming illegal or banned substances. Number 9. How does the Olympic Games make money? The IOC is officially a non-profit organization. According to Olympics.com, 90% of the revenues from the Games go straight back into support and athlete development. $500 million is invested into athletes from countries that are not able to shoulder the financial burden of sponsoring their athletes. Called Olympic Solidarity, the support system assisted 20,000 athletes in the run-up to the Olympic Games in Rio in 2016. The taxpayers of a host country also foot a lot of the bill, despite each host country being given a certain amount of money from the IOC. Each country is given between $1.5 and $2.5 billion. Brazil spent roughly $13.1 billion on the Rio Olympics in 2016. London spent $14.8 billion in 2012, and China spent $45 billion on the 2008 Beijing Olympics. With no cost spared, that can be detrimental to a country, as you'll find out next. Number 10. Many countries go into debt when they're chosen to host the Olympic Games. Aluxers, many cities go into debt hosting the Olympics. Let's use Rio as an example. When they hosted the Games in 2016, Brazil was in the midst of the worst recession the country had seen since the 1930s. Initially, Rio budgeted $2.8 billion when they bid, but ended up spending $13.1 billion, with costs overrun by 368%. Throughout Olympic history, there are very few countries that have profited by hosting the Olympic Games. Places that have profited include Los Angeles in 1988. That's because they used a lot of existing infrastructure. And in Barcelona in 1992. Places that have gone into debt because of the Olympics are Montreal, Athens, Sydney, and Rio. And often these cities leave behind infrastructure built especially for the Games, but never to be used again. Number 11. Olympic white elephants left behind. Business Insider published an article last year with images of what abandoned Olympic buildings look like today. Suffice it to say, they look terrible. Some of the buildings they included were Olympic Park in Rio, the media building that has been demolished, but debris still lies where the building used to be. Maracana Stadium is empty. The aquatic facilities are in disrepair, and thousands of apartments remain empty after being occupied for that short period of time. It's much the same in Pyeongchang. The speed skating venue is not in use, the downhill skiing site is not usable, and many buildings lie empty and abandoned. The BMX park is overgrown, and people use the parking at the cycling stadium for driving lessons. Which brings us to our next point. Number 12. Are the Olympic Games still relevant in the 21st century? It's argued that all the waste that these events bring, they're nowhere near sustainable and relevant in the 21st century. In a time where our focus is now rejuvenation, reusing, recycling, and saving our planet, these big events are a drain on our environment, and the money could be utilized to assist so many more athletes globally without the allure of shiny gold medals. Currently, around $15 billion has been invested into the Tokyo Games. Considering there's a huge pandemic affecting so many people, many critics believe it's time for the glorified games to be put to a rest. As reported by the Irish Times, the global pandemic has underlined just how incongruous such a lumbering behemoth is. We'll ask you your opinion on this coming up soon. But first, number 13. Where will the next Olympic Games be held? We mentioned the Beijing Olympics is coming up in 2022. They hosted the Summer Olympics in 2008, and this time they'll be hosting the Winter Olympics. Whether it goes ahead or not, only time will tell. The 2024 Summer Games have been awarded to Paris, followed by the Winter Olympics in 2026, which will take place in Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo in Italy. Thereafter, it's back to LA for the Summer Olympics in 2028. And if you'd like to learn some more about the ancient Olympics, we recommend you listen to The Ancient Olympic Games, the history and legacy of ancient Greece's most famous sports event by Charles River Editors. Remember to get your free download by going to aluxfreebook.com right now. Number 14. COVID and the Olympics. COVID certainly presents challenges to this year's Olympics that nobody would have dreamed of. Organizers state that athletes will be tested for COVID every day. Initially, athletes would have been tested every fourth day, but that rule has now changed to daily. According to Inside the Games, organizers have said the daily saliva testing for athletes and all those in close proximity to competitors will minimize the risk of undetected positive cases that could transmit the virus. Over and above that, athletes must take 2 COVID tests within 96 hours before flying to Japan. All officials, coaches, and media will be tested daily for 3 days after landing. Any athlete testing positive may not take part, and any non-compliance results in being stripped of accreditations. Number 15. The first ever Olympic virtual series will take place this year. According to the Olympic website, it's the first time there'll be a virtual series available. It'll include international federations and game publishers in baseball, cycling, rowing, sailing, and motorsport. Called the OVS, or Olympic Virtual Series, this virtual series began on the 13th of May and will run until the 23rd of June. Motorsport, baseball, and sailing will be esports. Cycling will be done on the Zwift platform. Sailing will use the Virtual Regatta Online Simulator, and baseball will go through Konami Digital Entertainment's game eBaseball Powerful Pro Baseball 2020. Considering the options now available, perhaps it's time to move on from the real deal. Which brings us to today's question. Aluxers, do you believe the Olympic Games is still relevant in the 21st century? We cannot wait to hear your opinions on this one, so please share with us. Now, you stuck with us until the end, of course. Here's a bonus. We said we'd tell you the highest and lowest score on the sustainability front, and here they are. The Winter Olympics in 2002 Salt Lake City and Albertville, France in 1992 have been the most sustainable to date. Salt Lake City scored 71 and Albertville 69. The least sustainable games were the Sochi 2014 Winter Olympics and Rio de Janeiro in 2016 Summer Olympics. They scored 24 and 29 respectively. Thanks for watching, Aluxers. We hope you enjoyed this video. We'd so appreciate a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel.